In a world where we are measured by different variables in life, things that are pressed upon us either by expectations or measured based upon those who are around us. It can become easy to be consumed by these ideas or goals that have been set by the world around us or by ourselves. And whether or not we meet those expectations or those ideas whom others have set on us or whom we have set on ourselves, it can become ingredients that make up how we see ourselves uh, and how we speak about ourselves. So, in today's episode, we will navigate this mindset, and that leads us to self-sabotage and negative self-talk, and discuss ways that we can overcome this mindset and achieve the life that is meant for us. With that, we're gonna go ahead and get this show on the road. Brothers, if you can, in your own words, in your own opinion, what does self sabotage look like in its purest form in a person?
In its purest form, I would say self-sabotage would be where a person has all the ability and you would think that they want to achieve something, but it's like they make it a point to create patterns where they disturb their own progress. They get in their own way. And it becomes where it's like, hold up, some of this has to be on purpose because you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has a lot to do with a limiting belief system that fails to allow you to close the gap between where you're trying to go and where you're currently existing. And in between that space between where you are and where you're trying to go, you have these conversations with yourself that admits defeat. And then you own it. You kind of put it on like it's a cloak and dagger, or whatever the case may be. And then you give yourself the excuse, and you start believing the excuse. You give yourself the excuse to not be successful, to not push forward, to not overcome any versions of failure that you may encounter in time.
Oh man, I love those answers. For me, when I look at self sabotage in its purest form, is you can see someone that's constantly getting in their way, constantly telling themselves what they can't do, constantly disqualifying themselves, or in the sense of they defeat themselves before they even try. Um, I, I think is this was a good conversation to have because I don't think many of us actually realize when we are in that self sabotage state, when we're in that mind. I think sometimes we've just been in this place so long that it's become a part of our identity. You know, we think negative self talk is humbling. We think it's humble. We think it is not being prideful. When really what we're doing sometimes is stopping ourselves short of what we're trying to achieve, or even in times what the Father is trying to do in us. For those of us who say that we are believers, we know that there's a plan that the Father is using us for. And sometimes we hold ourselves hostage in where we are now because we don't know how to allow ourselves to grow, how to allow ourselves to 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 fly, as you say, um, for many different reasons. Uh,
And also I think that sometimes this whatever it is that we allow to control us and tell us these things, it can come from our parents, it can come from our upbringing, it comes from many facets of life where you've seen a lower standard and now you think that that is the standard. So you tell yourself, well, hey, they only did this, so I can only fly this high because if they couldn't do it, how can I?
I like what you just did there. Like that was pretty good. Like it's almost as though the examples give you permission to fail, or it kind of like give you permission to be mediocre. So the things that you see around you, you kind of own that, and then you start to feel guilty if you start doing better than what you've witnessed growing up, so forth and so on. So I like what you did there. I like that.
I might need to hit that mute button right to talk. Hey, that was good though. All right, man. Let's go to our next question. And this one is good to me. I believe. I think it's a good discussion. What role does our family? Because Roland, you almost hit on it a little bit. Does our family, our community, and life experiences play in the development of self sabotage, such as fear, fear of failure or fear of taking risks?
Man,
Since
go ahead.
Yeah, since you went first the last time, I'll go. If you regard me, sir, I'll go first this time. Um, I think a lot of times, and you see it kind of working in reverse now. You'll kind of put labels on your children at a very young age. Say you're going to be this, or you're going to be that, or little Tyrone gonna do this, or little Tamika gonna do that. But you have no idea whether or not that's what little Tyrone or little Tamika want to do. And so now that child ends up carrying that identity with them throughout the younger adolescent years of their life. And then in some instance, they could feel like they hit some degree of failure, especially when they don't necessarily want to do that. They realize that that's not their passion. They have no desire to become the preacher or whatever it is that your mama or daddy don't put on them. So it may kind of create some type of anxiety within them to where they fear having that necessary conversation with their parents because they don't want to share with them what they really want to do. Also, looking at, family can serve, like we talked about just now, can serve as a model, but that model could be very limiting within itself. So seeing that, my daddy did this or my mama did that, sure, there could be something in you to say, I want to do that as well, to kind of follow along the lines of family heritage. And you see that a lot in the military, right? So my dad served in the military, so I served in the military, and so forth and so on. But in essence, should I be disappointed if my son decides he doesn't want to join the military? I shouldn't, for me. But a lot of times those things happen. So parents don't necessarily have those conversations to where they give their children permission to not follow in our footsteps. We think it's an honorable thing for my child to follow after me. And don't get me wrong, it does feel really good if your child does a thing because you're doing it, but don't make them do it or put it on their shoulders as it's something that they must fulfill. And then when you start throwing fear into it, again, not being able to live up to the standards of my dad or not being able to live up to the standards of my mom. We talk about the Huxtables a lot, Cliff and Claire, and you look at them. One's a doctor and one is a lawyer. Well, those are tall hills to climb, and I think everybody remember that boring episode where they ended up going to Hillman, and it was, in my opinion, the worst episode ever because I didn't like it. That's all it was. I don't need to have a reason. Leave me alone. But it was boring. But what they were doing, they was following that traditional pipeline that their parents had laid before them. And if you recall, a lot of conversations took place. Theo wanted to go to NYU, and Cliff got mad at him for it. So you see that a lot in family dynamics, to where a child can look at failure as disappointing my parents, because I don't follow that natural pipeline or whatever that looks like. Or they get to a certain point in their life where they realize that they did follow that pipeline, but later on, about mid career, they realize that I didn't even really want to do this. This is what my dad wanted me to do. So now they're feeling some type of way because, their passion is over here, but they're existing in the space. So out of fear of talking too much, I want to kind of pause right there and let Roland jump in.
Remember when we were growing up, how people would always say, "There's always work at the post office. If you got in at the post office, you got some benefits. You got this, and like, and where I grew up, you got the big three. So your automakers were there. So it was like you sideways guy. So it was like you were almost put into a position where the best thing going is, hey, I'm gonna go work at Chrysler. I'm gonna go work at Ford or GM, and because that was the best thing around. And where I grew up, you grew up around pimps, players, hustlers, and drug dealers and such. So it's like, man, this is it. This is the max. If you get to this point, you've made it. So when you wanted something better, you were almost like, hold up, you can't do that. And people would say you couldn't do it because they had never seen it. And so you take on that identity and say, maybe I can't do this. And this is what I'm good at. You're only good at it because you haven't tried these other things. And we get into situations where we follow our communities and we'll follow them down the wrong hole simply because this is what I know and I'm comfortable doing this. So when it comes to life experiences, I was speaking with my daughter today, and telling her when I came back from, I went to basic AIT and I came back home and I had a pocket full of money and I was looking at doing some of the stuff that I knew how to do, but then someone encouraged me to get out of that life. And until you see it, see, I could watch Cliff and Claire take their kids to school all day long. But if I never seen it and I see what's in my community, I see what's around me, I didn't have anybody, any role models that were positive. I'm like, yeah, it's good for Theo, but I can't do that. I don't know the first thing about filling out the proper forms. If I take this to my mother, is she gonna take it seriously? So when I'm looking at the people around me and I don't have the examples, I become what my examples were if I don't have something or a drive to push me out of that situation.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can y'all hear me well? All right, so I'm gonna jump right on in. When I'm looking at this, I look at, for some reason, money started coming into mind, and I'm associating money with the life experience piece. So a lot of times I think fear, let me start with the question. What role does family, community, and life experience play in the development of fear? Right. So I remember I used to be a broke son of a gun back in the army. I mean, broke. I mean, people talking about people living paycheck to paycheck. Mine was more like paycheck to Monday, right? We get paid on Friday. By Monday, I was broke. I had paid all the bills, and the $3 left we had over, we went and bought some ramen noodles and some eggs or something like that. But on the real, I think a lot of times when people have tried to save money and then something comes up and then they try to save money again and something comes up, they're like, man, why in the world should I ever try to save money? I'm never going to get out of debt. I'm going to be in debt to the day I die. And I think it creates a certain level of fear. And some people never get to a certain level of financial success because of the fear, because of what happened and how they moved with their money when they were young. They've developed a fear in a sense of even trying to save money because they feel like, man, soon as I save $1,000, the car break down. Soon as I save $500, man, Roland gonna ask me for $30. Soon as I, you know what I'm saying? That's what happens. Somebody start asking. Somebody needs something. So, and I think in a sense, it starts developing a certain level of fear, and some people are kind of scared to push out of that fear and really go through certain things. That's just my 2 cents. I hope I didn't get too far off, but I thought that, money is, at least for me, create a huge fear along the road. Cause I was like, man, if I only got $5 left, I'm like, man, I might as well spend it. Like what I'm saving it for. But maybe that was just me. Let me hold something. See?
So that kept you from being confident or able to take risk, right?
Well, that a little bit of both. It developed a mindset was like, I'm always going to be in debt. I had somebody tell me that less than 2 months ago. I was having a conversation and they, a couple years younger than me. And they was like, you know what? I've already accepted the fact that I'm going to die with debt. Like I'm always going to owe somebody something. And I'm just like, man, you know what I'm saying? So, but I think that has come from, a certain level of fear that has been created. Well, I don't know about them, but I know for me there was an issue.
I get it. Um, let's go to the chat, brother Christian. Good evening, brother. He asked a question. He said, "How can someone uh, change the narrative of pushing on a lifestyle that doesn't fit what they believe is the most fit path for their life?"
My initial thoughts is you have the conversation wearing them aviator shades with the palm trees in the background, bro. If you do that, I'm telling you, they can't turn you down. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think if you know, it's like I don't know what size shoes Unc wear, but if they ain't if it's not 11 and a half, 12, I can't put my foot in. So sometimes other people's lifestyle make you feel uncomfortable where you know it's not for you. And I guess you have to develop confidence in yourself to where you can say no. You can say, nah, that's not what I want to do. And you can do the things that you want to do. You can move how you want to move. And then you'll start to seek those things out. Because if you constantly fit into someone else's mold and just do what someone else want to do, then you going to have their results. But if you know you want to do something different, know you want to do something better, I would say continue to expose yourself to like-minded people who want to do better things, who want to grow and move forward, and also experience different things in life. I know, like people think, oh, well, we don't do that. We black. Well, I want to do that. Like down here, I want to go to the rodeo. I want to go. I want to experience certain things. I tell my kid, hey, don't limit yourself to what black people do, because if you do that, you'll have that limited mindset, and then you'll have limited behavior and how far you stretch, because you anytime you get uncomfortable, you're gonna fall back in line with what they say to do.
Yeah, other people's expectations shouldn't define shouldn't define what you do or shouldn't define your choices. Like Roland was talking about, I remember being in Colorado and wanting to do certain things, and they like, man, black folk don't do that. I'm just like, they don't, you know what I mean? So it's like there were certain things that I didn't do early on in life because I didn't think that I was supposed to do certain things, but I let other people put their lifestyle or what fits in the parameters of what someone can and can't do based off the color of their skin. And when I got older and I look back and I was like, I missed out on a whole bunch of stuff listening to these clowns. And I still talk to some of them every once in a while, and they still think like that. They still got that stinking thinking. But hey, that's on them. But man, we don't live our life for other people. You know what I mean? We live our lives for ourselves. And I know people may not like that, especially people got kids and spouses and stuff like that. But you can try living for somebody else if you want to. See how it turns out.
Yeah, as I look at this question, there are two sides of it that come to play. You got the side of me being a father and this being a conversation that my son wants to have with me, and then the side where my son is an adult, and he has not yet resolved within himself the thing that he wants to do would be pleasing to me. And even though both of them may sound different, I think they all begin with the same place. I think each person must resolve within themselves what it is that they feel that they're called to do. And until I figure out what I'm called to do, there has to be a thing that I'm doing that is drawing me to it. And so until each person figure out what that is, they're going to always do something that lines up with either what somebody else is doing or what the family has done or whatever that looks like. And so I start there because I think it's important that everybody plot their own course in life. It would, for me as a father, it would be very good for my son, even my 19-year-old son, to come to me and say, "Dad, this is what I was thinking about doing, and I don't think you'll like it, but at least I want to present it to you. Well, that's, to me, that's the conversation I want to have. Don't have the conversation that you think that I would like. Have the conversation that you need to have, because there's a portion of you that makes me hear what you're saying, regardless of what it is I want you to do. And that's the portion that says that you're my son. So because you're my son, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to listen to you very attentively. And I'm going to give you very salient advice that's going to move you in the direction to where I am going to tell you whatever that thing is. It doesn't matter what it is to me. The only thing is that that thing has meaning to you, and you throw all of you at it. So when you hit some brick wall, don't let that brick wall stop you. Push beyond that. And that's for the 19-year-old and the 30-year-old. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I think we have to get to the point to where we are comfortable within ourselves and drawn to that thing to such a degree it makes us have a difficult conversation with the people that we love.
Absolutely. Man, y'all came with it on this question. I would say two things. I love my parents. I love my godparents. I love all my influences that were in my life that played a major role. Even when my life was spiraling, there were people who spoke to me that gave me hope and a drive. But they cannot have such a hold on me that I'm living my life through their lens. And though they may have more life experience and they know what can be good for me, but it's not always necessarily what is best for me, right? Because they, I look at it like this: there's 1,000 musicians in the world, or millions. Let me put it like this: there's millions of musicians in the world, and maybe 1 million make money doing music. Less than 100 are making a living, a good living off of that music. Probably a little more than 100. I'm just narrowing it down. You know, the reality is, if that thing is what I do, if this is what is put in me and called in me to give, who's to say I can't, you know, make a living for myself doing it? Don't mean I'm you know, mama trying to push me to be a basketball player to make millions and millions of dollars. Okay, cool. Thank you, mama, but I don't want to play ball. I'm good with making, and some people might laugh, whatever. But I'm good with making 60,000. I'm good with making 80,000. I'm good with making 100,000. I'm living the life that is set for me. I'm happy where I'm at and content where I'm at because I'm taking care of my family, and I'm doing what I'm fulfilled in doing. Um, I hope that makes sense. I hope your question was answered, brother Christian. Um, hey, and the chat is on fire tonight. I love it. Uh, Let us roll on to our next question panel. So the question is negative is about negative self-talk. So is negative self-talk a sign of self-awareness? You know, the folk who say something negative about themselves and say, well, I'm just being honest with myself.
I would say anything like that is just an isolated focus. Because if I choose to focus on something may be true, but it's not the full extent of what things could be. I could say, yeah, well, like me and Uncle was talking about, like when I was in Colorado or when I was in Germany, and I'm out there, I'm going skiing. I want to go skiing. People talking about, or people like think black people can't swim. I was on the swim team. So it's like certain things, if when it comes to negative self-talk, if you can't swim, oh Lord. See, that's a shame. But we had to. They threw us in the water. You had to get back. But when it comes to negative self-talk, that's a sign of self-fear. I'm afraid to go beyond these limitations that I've put on myself. I know I can, but if I can, I'm scared of what may happen. You don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know if it's going to be bad. But what we do is we attribute failure to that. And instead of allowing us to fail and continue to do better so we can move up, we fail and then we get recluse and we go into a hole and we say, no, I can't do that. I don't like the way it feels. So you got to get, that's why if a child falls, let them fall and let them get back up on their own. Because if you continually pick them up, they know how it is to be picked up all the time. But when they got to get up, they know how to get up. And that's how it is in life. If you continue to fall, you'll learn a new way not to fall. You'll learn a new way to get up and you'll start to do better and you develop better habits so you won't have this negative self-image where you got to talk yourself down.
I have to think about this one for a minute, because the question is negative self-talk a sign of self-awareness? And I think for some people they can say yeah, because in a sense it points out or it highlights the negativity. It highlights something, a flaw, highlights something that you didn't accomplish. You know, it may highlight something. But I think the problem with that, and the reason why I think that is not true self-awareness, is because I think what it does is it highlights the flaw or the issue, and sometimes it may overlook like the strength or what you can learn from whatever that is. You know, so it's like if you were supposed to do something for 4 days in a row, right? You was like, I'm gonna be consistent this week and I'm gonna work out 4 days this week, right? And then you don't do it, right? So you're like, oh man, you beat yourself up about it. You know what I mean? That's that negative self-talk, right? So what you're doing is you're magnifying the part about not getting the 4 days. You did 3 days. So you're magnifying the 4 days and you're overlooking the 3 days you did. So I think that's why I think in a sense that it may look like that it's self-awareness, but I really don't think it is. So I'm really interested to kind of see what, I got everything that Roland said, but I'm also, I want to hear what everybody else said, because that's kind of what I think right now. So I'm definitely want to hear what else you guys got to say, and I may gnaw on it a little bit more later on.
Very interesting. I think the way the question is worded is it throws people, right? Is negative self-talk a sign of self-awareness? Well, negative self-talk itself isn't a sign of self-awareness. However, if you are riddled with negative self-talk, it could be a sign of self-awareness for you. If I fail to see the other side of the coin, if I fail, like I think, man, I can't remember how many shows ago, I revealed at one point in time, I had the mindset that I expect the worst, but hope for the best. Which one you think I'm gonna get? Probably gonna get the worst. When I got the best, it's probably because of grace. It had nothing to do with me. So I think in the big scheme of things, if a person is constantly negative, I think if that person is honest with themselves, then they will admit that they're constantly negative. So that could be the space of self-awareness that they're in. But negative self-talk itself isn't a sign of self-awareness. Now, we become self-aware so that we can learn that we can grow regardless of wherever we are, right? This mind has created some problems that this mind can't solve. So a person who is like just saturated with negative self-talk, that's what they know, and they won't know that they're saturated with negative self-talk or how to change that unless they talk to somebody else who is not that. So that's kind of like where I'm a park for now, because I know we're going to come back around with it more.
Yeah, because now I'm looking at a different perspective now. Even to where it might be yes. And this is like on a base level. So, and I'm looking at negative self-talk as a one-time and isolated thought, right? So, if initially I plan to run 4 days this week, I only run 3. When I say, oh crap, man, I only did 3 days this week, That's negative self-talk. But I think at the base level, it can be for a split second and a sign of self-awareness. I don't know, but that's kind of, I know me and you, I think we all kind of agreed, and we all kind of think no, but for some reason, I think in a sense, maybe on a base level, initially it can be a sign of self-awareness. So
It becomes what I learn about myself in the space of self-awareness.
I think I need more.
So to become aware of oneself means that I have taken inventory without judgment, right? Become aware. I've observed these things about me. So, in the observation phase of myself, I am learning these things that I do. Like, case in point, if for whatever reason, every time you ask me a difficult question, I do this or I look up in the sky, but I don't necessarily realize I do it. Well, I'm not self aware of that, but then somebody brings it to my attention, right, giving me the accurate feedback. Now I become aware of it. So now I observe to see if I do it. And in the observation phase of my own behavior, now I become self aware because it's confirmed. Well, in the self awareness phase, when I am becoming self aware, I learn that I may have some negative self talk in me as it pertains to something that should be revealed through faith. So, and I'm using that one intentionally because that's where a lot of people struggle, right? So, if it pertains to faith, I end up talking myself out of it because I'm more focused on what reality has taught me over the years, as opposed to being able to hold firm to the belief system of a thing that I can't see until it appears. So now, being aware of myself, I recognize now, because I've been taught before negative self-talk, negative self-talk. Now I can see where negative self-talk interferes with the connection that is between hope and the thing hoped for, which is called faith.
I like how
Good.
you did that. Now, when I took public speaking years ago and everything, I knew that I would get comfortable at times, and my T's would become D's. So I wouldn't say this, I wouldn't say that, I would say this and that. And because I'm comfortable talking like that, I'm talking with the boys and everything. And I would say a lot. Whenever I had a thought or a pause, it was a. So when it was brought to my attention, I became self-aware, as Coach was saying. So now, when I think of doing it, now I can change it. When it comes up, instead of saying this and that, I realize, hold up, dude, you ain't talking to. This ain't y'all talking in the background. You talking in front of people. So now you got to actually speak. You got to articulate, and it made me conscious of these things. See, when you're consciously down in yourself, if you're consciously self-talking, and it's not beneficial to you, all you're doing is you're exposing your fears of not just failure, but your fears of success.
I'm gonna hit this button sooner or later. Uh, I feel like I'm starting to act like my brother over there. Not saying no names, but technology. Um, I love you, bro. Let's. I want to look at a comment. I wanted to look at Lisa's comments, but before we do that, and I know I didn't put this in the chat. I'm sorry. Can we bring up Adrian artist question? I want brothers if we can. I'm, I want to see what your thoughts are on this one. She says the negative self talking is a way, I believe, a way of teaching ourselves lessons. What do you, what's your thought?
Um, sure. But the question becomes, what lesson are we teaching? Right. I think everything becomes a teaching point. Life teaches you lessons. Either I can learn the lesson that I'm supposed to learn in that particular moment, i.e., particularly the spiritual lesson, um, or not. And if I don't learn that spiritual lesson in that moment in time, I should not be surprised when it comes back around again, and it will. I think as it pertains to this, the negative self talking is a way of teaching ourselves lessons. Sure, it'll teach us a lesson, but it'll teach us the wrong lesson. And in that aspect, and I hope I'm understanding what you're saying the right way as I'm answering this. And if I'm not, Adrian, please say, just kind of reframe it. That way, I get it the way that you intended it. But if I am, I think a lot of times when we look at negative self talk and the lesson that it's teaching us, it teaches us to be complacent with the status quo. Um, you know, and I go back to the thing that we talked about before. You got to work twice as hard. You got to be twice as smart. That's an example of the negative self talk teaching us lessons. And in that example, the lesson that it's teaching me is not to expect too much. Right? Be okay with what is given to you. Be okay with what you obtain. Don't expect much more. Or in that aspect, work myself to the bones. Have no time for um, social interaction, connections, meaningful relationships, things of that nature. Lose myself in my work environment and going to school so that I can become, in essence, a very smart, great employee that becomes the most extreme introvert that you can ever meet in your life. And I'm being extreme when I'm responding to this because I want to make sure that we understand. I myself say it this way because if I don't say it this way, I think I'm being disingenuous. Negativity is necessary because if we don't have negativity, we'll never appreciate positivity. So at some point in your life, you had to experience negativity. You had to go through negativity. You yourself became negative to a certain degree. And then because of that, now you can appreciate what positivity actually does for you. The same thing happens when it comes down to good versus bad. The same thing happens when it comes down to righteousness versus sin, right? If you did not know sin, you could never appreciate righteousness. If you did not experience the bad, you would never appreciate the good. They are necessities. And so that's the thing. Maybe I'm using self talking as a way of motivation. Sure. And that's kind of like what I went to with the second part, right? The extreme version about working myself to the bone and being the smartest person, but then by that same token, having zero social connections and also being the most extreme introvert ever imagined. I'm not saying that negativity isn't necessary. It is necessary for the sake of understanding and appreciating and embodying positivity. And I'll pause right there and let Roland jump on that.
I was looking for a an analogy or something that they could put in there to an example. So I was over here staring at the chat, but I didn't see one. But I did get, and you just kind of hit on it, Coach. And you said maybe using Adrian said maybe using self talk as the way of motivation. I um I'm a Goggins fan, so I'll get a quick Goggins story. Goggins said that this was a short video that he had a few years ago, and he was talking about how he was always getting up in the morning. It wasn't nothing to him to grab his shoes, put them on, and then he out the door. He said after a while, he was looking at his shoes a little bit longer and all these different things. So he said he started having all these negative thoughts going in his head. So he started playing, he made a tape with all of these negative sayings. And he said he started playing that tape back to himself. And he said he sounded like a straight punk when he started listening to all of those negative things, when he started listening to himself. You know what I mean? And he used that as motivation. So I can kind of see how you turning a frown into a smile, you know what I mean, for some motivation. But I also I really would like to see how you can use, I would like to know an example of using negative self-talk, as a way to, with the other one. The other one that was before then, but I get this part, but the other part I didn't. I wanted to know an example of something like that of how the negative self-talk part is. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think
be
he
successful
teach.
or something.
What's that again?
Now he said the other part was when she said using it to teach ourselves a lesson.
Yeah, like I didn't understand that part, but I think Coach kind of cleared all of that stuff up. But like I said, I was just looking for an example that maybe to help me understand that perspective a little bit better.
I think sometimes especially as men, when we don't get something, I'm not calling myself a punk, but I'm saying don't be out, and the B has some extra letters on it. Get up, you got to move. But I'm motivating myself in that instance. But me, negative self-talk, I think that if I will, going back, to that question, when I'm looking at it being a motivator or something like that, the scripture tells me to exhort. The scripture tells me to edify. The scripture tells me. So if I'm doing that to other people, I'm to do that to myself. So if I hear myself or start thinking a certain way, I have to change it around. I got to make sure I'm motivating me. And that's why, like, sometimes I don't want to be positive. I want to mope. I want to sit up there and soak. But I'm like, dude, you can't do this because if you do this, you get in a rut. If you stay there, all of us have negative thoughts. Don't let nobody sit up in here and act like they don't. We all have negative thoughts, but it can turn from a thought to a behavior. That's where it changes. All of us have negative thoughts like, man, you can't do this, or man, that was dumb of you, or however you may phrase it. But if that becomes your behavior, your pattern, then it's gone wrong. But when you notice it, you can change that and twist it around with a but this, that, and the other, and then you change how you move. So now you're motivated by what you said about yourself because you don't want to be there. You don't want to stay in a rut. So you know that, hey, let me get back in my word. Let me get back in my routine. Let me get back into something that's going to bring me up. Let me call my brothers and tell them this so they can say, man, stop sucking. Suck it up and drive on. Or they can tell me something to let me know that that's not where you belong. Because sometimes we get so down on ourselves that we think we belong down because of what we've done, because of what somebody else has said, instead of saying, man, yeah, I did that. But I can overcome it. And so when I talk to my brothers, they're not going to come with the downward spiral stuff. They're not going to keep pushing my head under the water. They're going to say, dude, if you want to drown, drown. But this is how you can come from underneath that water.
I think if I can just jump back in one more second here. I think we live in a world that has deceived us when it comes down to positivity. And, we think that there are some positivity there. We think a lot of positive things that we say are really positive when they're not positive. They're like false positives, kind of like when, back when you had to get those shots for that particular virus. Um, and what I mean when I say that is simple equations. And for you guys who actually remember the monthly training videos that we were doing, we did that stint on positivity. I mentioned that before. I can't take in a mathematical equation, I can't take a positive and a negative and expect a positive on the other side. If I'm talking about a multiplication table, right? So a positive times a negative will always yield a negative. So if I'm trying to do my best to make Garfield look bad, that's a negative assertion. That's not a positive assertion. I'm trying to outshine Garfield. That's a negative assertion because I'm doing it. And what I'm doing, I am using him, even though I think it's positive. I am actually using him and claiming that I'm using him as a motivator. But really, what I'm actually doing is I am creating a statement that is more negative in nature. And let's just say, for whatever reason, Garfield decides he wants to move to India tomorrow. Well, I don't get to see him any longer. What if he just clean his social media thing? So now what am I going to use to motivate myself now at that point? So if I have to use another person to do a thing for myself, then it's not necessarily a positive thing. If I have to prove something to somebody else, if I have to show somebody else up, or if I have to make these people feel bad about what it is I'm doing, that's not positivity. That is a negative assertion. And so I can't really put it into layman's term to use a negative assertion to motivate me, because in essence that can be more of a demotivator when it comes down to it. I think if I use a negative assertion in the direction of what I observe, I think Lisa kind of gave one. That's more of an observation. And I think the one that Lisa gave was in reference to not wanting to exercise and calling myself lazy. Well, sure, me calling myself lazy is negative, but that's an observation, right? So I think we have to be completely honest and transparent with these things that we're doing. Now, can I look at somebody and view them as kind of like external motivations? Absolutely. But the best thing I can do if I have a relationship with them, I know them, or I know a way to get in contact with them is to reach out to them and ask them a question. Hey, bro, like I see you getting them gains in the gym, whatever the case may be. Like, what you do, like what type of routine you on, things of that nature. But we live in a world to where talking to people is becoming a thing of the past, and we don't want to talk to people. We want to look at people and actually just fill in the blanks as opposed to just having a conversation. And unfortunately, a lot of us have a lot of weeds in our garden. If you know, you know. A lot of us have a lot of weeds in our garden that we never did any maintenance on. So those weeds are intertwined with the wheat. And in essence, those weeds are giving you a harvest just as well as the wheat is as well. And so that's part of the issue. I need to understand what that is. I don't know exactly what that is referencing. If you can give us a little bit more, we'll be glad to answer that, Cassandra. But thank you. That is all.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what she was referencing. I was trying to think about what you were saying.
Man, can I steal the show? No, I'm just playing. I don't think we over this negative self-talk stuff yet. Like I still think that even though we may have cleared up some of the water, I think we may have gotten it a little muddier at the same time. I don't know. Because I asked a question in the chat and I asked somebody to give me an example of negative self-talk teaching a lesson, right? So there are two responses came back. One was Cassandra Mackenzie, appreciate you for that. She says, I think that when you chastise yourself for a bad decision and learn the lesson from that mistake would be an example of that. And then there was another one, Shell, after that. Appreciate Shell for tagging along today. She said negative self-talk can bring up urgency. That's the only thing she can think of. So I'm open to coach or any Roland Gaddy, somebody clearing up those two conversations, because I asked the question, but because I was still a little bit unclear. I thought I was clear, then I got unclear. Then I was clear again, then now I'm unclear again. So
let me drop a little flame on this fire that's about to brew up under me real quick, right?
Yeah.
Where does the chastising mentality come from? Roland, go.
Chastising mentality. I don't know where you want me to go, Coach, but when we talking negative self-talk, see, I think what we're confusing is me saying something about myself with negative self-talk. Because me just saying, dude, you lazy today, that's not negative self-talk. Remember, this is a pattern which establishes a belief about me. It's not just me saying one thing, one or two things here and there, and then me getting over it. Because if I'm saying all these things stem from my community, my upbringing, my parents, those are in my psyche now. So now what I do is I look to those negative things to describe me. I look to those negative things to say where I can and can't go. You know we can't go in there. You know how we do. Like I had to get used to wearing my hat in the car with more than two people in the car when I came down to Texas. Because in Detroit, when you leave the city, you take your hat off. You turn your hat around. You're not going outside the city because you know they're going to pull you over and all these things because of community. That's how it was in the community when you left and go to them other folks across the tracks and stuff. They going to bother you. So I had to, those were things where I thought that everyone was against me. I thought that I'm a black man, so I can only move this far. And it wasn't just a saying, it was a belief system now. So when you establish a belief system within yourself that you're negative, that you're poor, that you're weak, that you're this. It was established as a pattern, not just as mere words. The mere words became thoughts, and those thoughts became a pattern. So when we're looking at these things, I'm not looking at whether I got motivated because, yeah, I said, man, I was lazy. I only did 3 miles today. Okay, I can do 4 tomorrow, 5 tomorrow, whatever. But I'm saying I'm just not doing anything about it to change it. I'm living in it.
Yeah, I get it. The notion of chastisement, right? I think a lot of times, because remember, we're talking about using negative self talk as a motivator. Um, and it's almost as though I am disappointed in my own behavior. Therefore, now I feel like I need to punish myself, right? So when I say the notion of chastisement, chastisement is taught, right, through a lineage of something other than what should have been. And so whenever you get out of line, you get a beating, right? Not the way that we say it, beaten. We get a beating, right? Why is that important to understand? Because you give yourself a verbal beating for not achieving something in your mind, and you think that's going to motivate you to do better, when in essence it doesn't. It's just another form of a self inflicted punishment, pain, whatever that looks like. It becomes habitual, then you become addicted to doing that to it, and all that. In all essence, it's not positivity whatsoever. It's not moving you in the direction of what is good. The only thing that's going to move you in the direction of what is good is learning the lessons that you were supposed to learn in that particular point in time, not the negative thing that I tell myself because not achieving it. So that's the thing that we have to understand. Is negative self-talk going to motivate me to do better? Unless somebody can give me a different example, the answer for me is a clear, concrete no, right? Because I can speak positivity in the space of me not achieving a goal, and then that will motivate me to try again. I speak negativity to me in the space of failing to reach that goal, then now I don't want to be beat no more. I'm good, master. You ain't gotta be handling me like that either. I'll go try something else. So that's just my initial thoughts when it comes down to this, because I don't want anybody to walk away from this with the wrong perspective. I like how my brother came in just now. Phil Bragg, good to see you. He said, and I know he mentioned just saying, I can't. That is a form of negative self talk, because you're automatically saying right now, not only are you saying that I can't, well, I cannot, you've automatically decided defeat. Even if I try again, I'm not going to be able to do it because I said I cannot. So that's the thing. Like, if I put that term in the midst of failure, then that's not going to motivate me to do better. I've just decided a fate for myself. It becomes a self-defeating prophecy. So that's kind of like where I'm going with this one.
Yeah, I think the bigger conversation that needs to be had, maybe later, it's about words. We always say, I know everybody on this panel says words mean things, and so sometimes we create gray areas because we're trying to merge two different meanings together, or two different words together, right? There's a difference between negative self-talk and observation, which is the reason why I asked the question the way I did. Is it self-awareness? Because many people will fool themselves, because this negative self-talk for some of us has become a mindset. It has become our way of. For a long time, I did not know how to speak any other way other than I didn't feel comfortable if you complimented me. I didn't. I didn't compliment myself. All I knew, even I joined the military, I did something better. I moved out the hood, but I still was living from the negativity that I went through. Nothing good was coming to me. Nothing good could come to me. While good was coming to me, that was still my mindset. So no, I wasn't becoming more self-aware. I was actually putting myself in a mind space that was going to lead me back to where I was eventually, until I had to change my mind. And so I think when we get to that point of saying it can be self-motivation, we now destroy the meaning of negative self-talk, and we put a different meaning on it. It is talking about yourself negatively, right? It is, it is about is talking yourself out of success, talking yourself out of trying, telling yourself you can't do something, telling yourself you don't have the ability when you don't even know because you haven't even tried because you kept talking yourself out of it. Lisa had put something in the comments that I wanted to talk about, but we don't have time. But she gave a definition of both, and it shows, and you see the difference between self-talk and self-awareness. So if y'all have time, go scroll up and see what she read or what she wrote. I totally agree with it. But before we move on, listen, if y'all like, because y'all lighten the chats up on on this part of the conversation. If y'all like this conversation and y'all want to hear about this on one of our TikTok lives on Sunday, on one of our Sundays maybe, hey, go ahead and click on that live goal or that YouTube live goal and send a yellow star, a gold star. We need 10 of them so we know that y'all really want to finish this conversation. All right. Yes, thank you. she, the first one, she said self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your thoughts. All right. That's one. And can we go to the other one? She brought in the definition of negative self-talk. Yeah. Negative self-talk can lead to decreased self-esteem, increased anxiety, and a negative outlook on life. Right? And so we have to leave those two where they are, and we can't try to merge them. That becomes dangerous when we start merging words and playing with them that way.
There was a
Mhm.
Cassandra explained the gaslighting comment, and to her explanation, um, when we talked about gaslighting, remember we said gaslighting can be anything. Scapegoating, falsifying the truth, manipulating the truth. So gaslighting carries a large, a vast scope of everything. So to your question, when you say, can that be gaslighting? Sure. But if he never knows about it, then I'm not gaslighting him. That's the other part to it. So in the explanation, remember I said he moved to India, he shut off all social media, things of that nature. Now, if I use it against him, then yes, it would be. But if he never knows about it, no, it's a form of gaslighting, but it never hits home because he's totally unaware of it.
And he has to also be made to where now coach makes him feel that now coach is the victim instead of him. Coach is doing the damage, but he's acting like he's the victim now.
I hope we clear. Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Cassandra. And I hope everything is clear and all minds are clear. Let us move. Let's go to the next question we have. Lava. All right. Can the negative self-talk be used as constructive criticism? All right. No, we hit that one, right? All right. Let's go to the.
What was the question again? No, what did you ask, Ed? I'm sorry.
I think we did we hit this question?
I don't know if I addressed it.
No, that one just popped up.
Oh, this one just popped up.
But I would say that's what I addressed when I said negative self-talk is a pattern. So patterns can't be constructive. Once it's established as a pattern, it becomes behavior. So you have a negative behavior about yourself. So it can't be positive. It can't be constructive because you already see it. Everything about it is negative. It's not like I'm saying, dang, you suck right now. No, it becomes a behavior where the suck becomes your mentality, which becomes your behavior. So now, instead of going to the gym, now I'm not going to do anything because I suck. Because it became a pattern. It's not just me saying it like, dude, you need to do this. Or you trying to motivate yourself by doing something. instead of motivation, you're establishing over whatever period of time that this is where you are. You are inept in this area in your life. So if I think this way about myself, I don't see how it could ever become constructive unless I change how I see it.
So before I start, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but can I add a different perspective to this? Have you ever like met people who have very low self-esteem? And then when you meet them and you finally talk to them and learn more about them, you start to get a glimpse on where that came from, that was constructed.
I think you said constructive, like
That
constructive as in building positives.
right. No, no, hold on. Don't assume, right? Because anything after that is an assumption.
It
It is
says
wait, hold
constructive.
on, wait. Let it soak in. Remember what I said? Remember we said 2 weeks ago, rid your mind of what you're thinking so you can hear what I'm saying. Right? Constructive is just simply mean to build something.
Yeah.
The question is what? See, we're talking about positivity, and a lot of times we confuse constructive criticism as something being positive. It doesn't necessarily have to be positive. It can be building something negative as well.
Gotcha.
So if we're looking at negative self-talk as being constructive criticism, sure, it can be constructive criticism. The question that you have to entertain is what is it constructing? So at some point, once you get the glimpse of what positive self-talk has the potential to do, the negative self-talk starts to go away because positive self-talk builds more of what you want as opposed to negative self-talk building what you don't want. And in essence, kind of going back to what Lisa talked about earlier when she said negative self-talk is harmful, but it can serve as a no, not that one. It was something else when she gave what negative self-talk does with anxiety and all kind of other stuff. I can't. Or was I don't know. It was up there. Somebody said something about what negative self-talk was. It increasing anxiety, so forth and so on. So when negative self-talk increases anxiety, that's building anxiety, right? Constructive. So we got to ask the question: is what is it constructing? There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Do we do we have anything else lined up? We have a few. Um, let's let's move over to our next question. How many more we can squeeze in here? Um, how have factors such as social media, family expectations, self expectations lead to social comparisons in many individuals?
We talk about it a lot. Well, we've talked about it on here. We've talked about that comparison model. When you spend a lot of times looking at the highlights of people's life, because the reality of it, that's what we're watching. I heard an analogy some time ago and said that, when you scroll on your phone, that's just like driving through a neighborhood and you just passing house after house after house. The house with the nice yard, sprinkler system, the nice manicured lawn with flowers and all of those things. Those are the ones you might stop for a little bit. You might glance, but eventually you're going to keep scrolling. You're going to keep driving on down the road. And it seems like for the most part, that's what we're looking at, when we're looking at social media. We're scrolling, something catches our eye and we spend a minute or a certain amount of seconds or so on it. And then we're moving on to the next thing, and then 5 or 6 scrolls down the road or 5 or 6 scrolls or 5 or 6 houses down the road, you don't really remember what the other house was. But, on the other hand, what happens is you are seeing a whole bunch of houses, especially if you're driving through a neighborhood that where you don't live in. You living in the hood and you driving past the 700 to $1 million homes all the time, and you wondering You know, man, how come I ain't got $1 million home like Roland? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm working too. I see Roland, all he do is post on social media all day long. But you don't know what Roland did to where he's in a position to where he can post on social media all day long. That's what you don't know. So I think one of the times, like when we see people doing things on social media, that is a highlight reel. That is just one, if it's a picture, that picture took less than 1 second to snap. There's over 24 hours in a day. I don't know how many minutes and I don't know how many seconds it is. But a lot of times people are comparing themselves to um, the minuscule amount of time and little bit of information that has been highlighted for everybody to see. And then what happens is I think sometimes people start feeling, a certain level of inadequacy or low self worth because you are starting to compare yourself to these people that you see on social media every single day. So that's my 2 cents when it comes to this question, brothers.
Social media has a lot of people thinking that this is reality. How you see people on these platforms and on IG, X, and whatever else these things are called, that's reality. And I know this because, especially having children, whether it's my kids or my grandkids, I notice when they go to social media, like they're getting your car real quick when it's clean, your car clean, your truck clean, taking pictures, doing that. Like, that ain't your life. That's not what you do. And it leads other people to believe. So now when you see it, you think like, man, such and such is living a good life. Such and such got it going on. Uh, she woke up like this. No, she did. Those ain't even her eyelashes. So, but you tripping about that. I can show you things and make it seem like if I'm in one room of my house, everything is put together. But that's because I threw everything in the closet. I think we have become a people who look to social media as something to where we can leave our lives for a moment of time, go there and live through those people. It's like I can pimp my ride. It's like pimp my rides for people's lives. I can go on here and see how people have gone and moved on. They got a better life. Man, I wish I had that. Man, I wish. That's why people like me, I get online, and I'm quite sure Dwayne too, because they be ringing his doorbell on Saturday morning. We order things because they be advertising. We like, man, I seen something last night. Don't need it. I'm trying to find room for the junk that I don't use already, but I'm already thinking, man, I can buy that and I use it. No, I won't. But because it seems so great, that's what social media does. It seems so great. So now we start to compare our lives to that and say, man, they got it going on, but we don't know what it is. That's why we fall when we see people who were in relationships and we thought, like, I want to be like Ben and J Lo. No, you don't. It's the second time go around, and you see how it worked out because you don't know what she has to deal with, he has to deal with in their lives. And instead of working on you, it puts you at a position where you're in front of a computer, you're in front of a phone, and where you just sitting and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Time is going by, and then next thing you say, man, it ain't enough time in the day. Is no, you didn't prioritize your time to do something constructive. You did something that was destructive in nature. Instead of moving forward, you stood still, and standing still allows others to pass you by.
Hey man, why you put my business in the street? First of all, that's all I'm saying. Um, yeah.
We all been doing that today. I've been calling everybody out today. I've been shooting shots.
Oh man. I love it. I love it. I think somebody already mentioned the highlight reel in a nutshell. You see the best version of other people's lives on social media. You don't really see the truth. You see what they want you to see. That is true. And in some cases, it is true. In most cases, it's not true. It is a easy way of, to Cassandra's point, gaslighting other people. right? Because you will start feeling anxiety because I've been doing this. Yeah, I've been doing this now for 7, 8, 9 months, and this person only did it for a month, and they already, moved themselves out of a job. Okay, sure. Um, I think all of that in the space of what is true, what is assumption, what is fact, what is opinion, all of that exists. And I think it's necessary for us to be able to discern reality in real time. And I think we live in a time and space to where we struggle with that. We struggle with being able to discern reality. How can I discern reality for somebody who lives in California and we're struggling discerning reality with somebody who lives right across the street? And so when it comes down to these factors, whether it's social media, whether it's family expectations or your own self expectations. So can I be the unpopular guy for a moment? Some of us claiming that we're believing for a thing and we have not necessarily done the exercise for that level of that thing that we're claiming that we're believing for. Like you cannot go, and I'm just being transparent. I cannot go from where I am right now to way up there in the twinkle of an eye. Miracles do happen, but miracles don't happen for you as a believer. It happens for other people so that they can become believers. And so that's the thing that we struggle with within the scope of the difference. And I'm just throwing that into the difference between miracles and faith, right? You have to exercise this thing called faith and stop paying attention to somebody else. I know we're going to talk about a trap, but for me, one of the biggest things I talk about is the comparison trap. If I look at what Brother Gaddy got and I say, "Ooh, I want that," isn't that a definition? Does that not have a meaning? Does that mean a thing? And is that thing that I'm doing now, does that not make it wrong? Because I see Gaddy with it, and because I see Gaddy with it, I now want it because he now holds it as an example. Oh, I want one of those. Oh, that's interesting. So we got to be careful when it comes down to this whole comparison trap, right? That's why a lot of us stay stuck in going from this thing to this thing to this thing over here to this thing over here because we're not focused on anything. And a person who isn't focused on anything will be subject to everything, everything that catches their attention, everything that sounds really good because they got itching ears. And so whatever social media got going on, the latest social media trend, they're over there dancing. They're getting it in. Why? Because this person got 1 million views. I can get 1 million views too. Well, clean up behind you first before you take that video shot. I'm just being, look, man, don't judge me. I'm just keeping it real. Clean up behind you first before you do that video shot because nobody want to see you to make your bed last night. Okay? Family expectations. Sure, family can have expectations all they want to, but your family is not responsible for living your life. Self expectations. Well, again, you got to kind of work on this thing right here before you start placing those expectations on yourself because your expectations of self might be out here but you have not done the necessary work on self to catch up with what you got ahead of you. So that's just kind of like my thoughts on this.
Yeah, man. Y'all killing these questions. For me, when I look at this conversation, I think sometimes, and I'm gonna talk from, 'cause I think most of us talk from the social media aspect, but from the expectation aspect, and I'm gonna talk from the self expectation. Some of us, coach, we say that we're believing for a thing, but the problem with the thing that some of us are believing for is not the vision in which fits us. I could say I want to be a basketball player, and I'm envisioning myself to be LeBron James. What is the problem? I'm 5'11". He's 6'8". I can't do to people what he can do to people. I can't envision my ability, my desire to be a basketball player based on LeBron James. Maybe I need to base it based upon Chris Paul. Not that he's a lesser ball player, but he's different. He fits my body type. He, I, my speed type because I ain't that fast on the court. But and I'm joking, but our expectations sometimes are based upon what someone else has shown us that a thing looks like versus just wanted to be the best version of myself in this thing that I can be. And that's where the negative self-talk comes into play because I've realized when I go out and shoot, my form don't look like Ray Allen. When I go out and I do a layup, I don't look as I can't toss it high and roll it off the backboard like Kyrie. And so now I'm like, I'm not that good in basketball. Bro, you not bad at you are you. And I think that's the difference. The comparison from when it comes to self to us believing the thing, and I quotation that because we're not believing the thing, we're believing sometimes to become a person. I want to be well spoken like coach. No, I just want to be well spoken. I won't speak like coach. Coach speaks like a well spoken man from Georgia. I speak like a well spoken man from New York. Roland speak like a well spoken man from from Detroit that every now and then he goes back into the what up those, but we bring him back to human speech. But but the best version of it is what it looks like when it's catered to you. You want to be a ball player, find your shot. Sean Marion had the ugliest shot I ever seen in my life, but I swear he couldn't miss. Yeah, but I'm just saying. I think we have time for uno mas. I
Hey,
want to.
hey, Gad, you mind
Mhm.
if I go back to that question real quick? Just a real add something to it. And the only thing I want to
Yeah,
add to
yeah.
that is just the family. Like we all kind of talked about mainly the social media piece, but the family expectation piece is huge too. And the only reason I wanted to highlight this was because I think someone mentioned it about, dad was in the military, now the sons has an expectation to live up to it. I remember hearing that like when I first came on. And then as a high school counselor, I see it, where students are being expected to get into certain careers. I see students who in 10th grade who are working full time, like they're expected to be at home. I mean, they're expected to work, but when auntie is a nurse, when uncle is a professor at a university, when grandma was this, I mean, there's a certain expectation sometimes that family members may have, when it comes to certain things like that. So I just kind of wanted to highlight it out there. I know we kind of talked about social media, but I think, that family expectation is a real thing, and it can work in a positive and a negative way. But I think, sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on people to try to live up to a certain level or certain expectation as other family members.
I didn't know if anybody else had anything. I agree right there. Because Roland brought up the Cosby Show earlier. I think the goal of the Cosby Show was to kind of show us what it looked like for us to be Doctor So and So, for us to be lawyer so and so, for us to send our kids to college and go to college. Remember Theo? You remember that one of the first episodes, Theo, when he said he wanted to move out, and so he gave him the monopoly, the money, and he started counting off the bills and snatching the money back from him. All right, Theo was the problem child. He the one you thought had the learning disability, but he became the professor or the teacher. Graduated college and started teaching young men. You know what I'm saying? So to see that turnaround, you know, was important to somebody. But like Roland also said, I didn't see it in my family. So how real is that to me? And so, so I do agree that a part of that seeing success in our family at home can be beneficial. But putting that expectation to be that thing on me can also become a detriment. Um, so I agree right there. Um, let us. We're gonna uh, do our last question of the night. We're gonna move forward into our final thoughts. Uh, so, in what ways can we mitigate some of these factors of self-sabotage behavior? And as we've discussed tonight, in the younger generation, those younger men that are watching us, the Chris Burrows, the Christian Burrows, and younger, you know, how can we mitigate it in that generation?
I think we got to get comfortable with ourselves. I don't think a lot of people are, and I can say, well, me, I wasn't comfortable with being by myself. But you put me in the crowd, I move the crowd. I got the room. I'm good. But then when I'm by myself with my thoughts, with who I am, it's like, man, I wasn't enough for me. So when I retired, it became crazy to me because I'm looking at everything and I'm saying, okay, I got to do some of this stuff alone. And I'm not at work. I don't have a bunch of soldiers. I don't have kids at home. I don't have this. I think so. When we try to mitigate the factors of self sabotage, learn yourself. And when you learn yourself, learn who you are, learn what you like, learn what you don't like, and explore different things so you can say, man, I wouldn't have tried that before, but I'm learning that I like new things. I'm explorative to where I can learn something new to establish new patterns, new behaviors, and everything. And I think we don't look into meditation enough. I think you got to meditate, and you meditate on what you think about, what you read, and what you put inside here versus what you see through these things on social media and other people's lives on TV and TV shows. And you can say, man, it's the small things that matter. And when you stop thinking about the larger picture all the time, you're like, hold up, let me focus on where I am in life and get to doing this great, then I can move to another ladder. And then I can move from there to another. But as long as I'm focused on that thing at the end, I'm never focused on what's right in front of me. And what's right in front of you is yourself, your family, and those that love you, and not those people that just pat you on the back when you do something good, but don't care, can care less about you.
In what ways can we mitigate factors of self sabotage as we have discussed tonight in younger generations? I'm a firm believer that we, as the older generation, we do not always and we cannot always verbally connect with other generations. Sometimes the language is different, sometimes the connection just may not be there. But one thing that I've always have learned is that someone is always watching. So I think one of the best things that we can do to help mitigate is to model and help teach what positive self talk is. So when we are out there and we, most of us have been leaders or consider ourselves leaders. So whether it be on our job, whether it be, excuse me, in our home, we're all leaders. So someone mentioned it earlier. I can't. So when we're around our kids, when we're around our grandkids, when we're around our spouses and our husbands, are we saying I can't? Or are we saying, you know what, I'll give it my best. I can do this. What can I learn from this? So I think that if nothing else, what we can do as, kind of the older generation and kind of leaving a little something for the young folks, I think that one of the best things that we can do is model and help teach positive. We spend a lot of time on negative, but teach and model what positive self-talk is. I keep it short
I
because
I like that. I'm gonna start off by saying when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I think one of the most important ways to mitigate the factors of self sabotage is to recognize those people who are ready to mitigate self sabotage, and then become like I'm going back to the modeling piece, model it, but not just model it, teach it as well, because we can reduce some learning gaps. Like, let's be transparent. We learned some things Some things we learn through studying, some things we learn through trial and error, and some things we just learn based upon our own stubbornness. We got tired of beating our head up against the wall. So why allow someone else to go through that when you already have that experience that says, hey, you don't have to do that, this, that, and third. Now, again, I go back to the point, whenever the student is ready, the teacher will appear, because at the end of the day, you can tell that to somebody who's not ready to hear it, and it's just going to, go in one ear and not the other. So I think I will start there. The other side of that is you need to prepare yourself to be a teacher. You need to not only work on your own lifestyle so that you can model it, but you also need to be prepared to have those type conversations that help them to understand that you are there to help them, not chastise them, not, tell them that they're stupid or anything of that nature. No, you just want to help. And if they allow you to help, then you could be a great multiplier, a a great multiplier to their own life. But again, I think it's important for each one of us to do the work on ourselves so that when the opportunity presents itself, and trust me when I tell you, it is an opportunity. The opportunity to teach someone younger than you, whether it's your child or not, don't fumble the football at that point in time. When you fumble the football, I promise you, they ain't coming back. And then they're probably gonna spread the word about you as well. Don't go talk to Mr. Gaddy, because Mr. Gaddy, he don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? He's putting out bad juju and trying to tell us that we got to do it this way, when all actuality is that we know a better way of doing it right now. So I think that's the thing. We want to teach through the lens of our own experiences, but that does not mean that our experiences were right. They were just our experiences. Our experiences are for us to learn from. If we learn the lesson from our experiences, teach the lesson, not the experience.
I, I love it. You already read my mind, sis. So let's go to our final thoughts. Every,
We had a dialogue about stopping self-sabotage. I think that, and one, we got to practice compassion. And sometimes we can have a lot of compassion for others, but we have little for ourselves. So when it comes to things, we can beat ourselves up. So you got to practice that self-compassion to where you give grace to yourself as well. Even if you made a mistake, even if you slipped up, you can't be the one that beats yourself down, that continues to knock you lower than you should be. Showing gratitude, being grateful for what is and what's not, and focus on what could be. Because if you aren't grateful for the small things, when the big things come, you're faking. You're and you aren't showing true gratefulness. What you're doing is allowing the lack of gratitude to permeate in your body, and it builds animosity. And I'm one that I believe in affirmations. You must affirm yourself, and not affirm yourself with fake things that can't be accomplished, that you can't do, but acknowledge where you are and where you're going. And you got to tell yourself these things, because when you tell yourself, you'll start to see it. You'll start to say, man, I can actually do it, especially when you're putting that work behind that faith, because faith without works is dead. We know that. So we can talk all day, but if you don't have a work ethic behind you, you'll just continue to stand in one place. It's like walking on a treadmill, and you got to be able to adjust your negative thoughts. So if you find yourself thinking on a certain plane where it's breeding that negative self-image, it's breeding that thing in you, you got to adjust that and say, man, I've been speaking self-doubt lately. I've been talking down about myself, about life, about situations. And last but not least, coming from me, get around some people that know that, hey, this ain't you. And if that is you, they will help develop some things and some procedures that's going to help you out. Say, man, you've been talking reckless about yourself lately. You've been destructive in your comments, and you're putting yourself down, and that's not how we roll. So, and then they'll challenge you to be the person that does the work. You gonna do all the work about whether or not you're sabotaging yourself, because you got to do it, because until you change it, until you see it and believe it, you're going to continue to do the same thing that you've been doing. And if it's sabotage, you'll see the end result. It's like the wages of sin is death. Same thing.
Ooh, this was a very interesting, enlightening conversation, and I really enjoyed it. You know, we spent a lot of time today talking about negative self talk and just different avenues of that. One of the things, well, my final thought is this. You know, the topic or the title is Stop Self Sabotage, How to Improve Self Talk. To give an answer for this, I'm going to say that how how we improve on things is different from person to person. How I improve on something is my way. How Coach improves on something is his way. How Roland improves on something, he has his way, and Gaddy as well. So I would say to people, how do you improve on self talk? Take self talk and treat it like every single thing that you do to get better at. If you're somebody who works out and you want to get better at working out or running or lifting weights or something, you come up with a plan, you know, you set some goals, you be consistent with it, and you move on. You have to do the same thing when it comes to self-talk. You need to do some research about it, figure out what self-talk really is. Go back and watch this video. You know what I mean? I guarantee if you watch this video a second time, something else is going to come out and it's going to hit you, and it may open your eyes to something. So I just say this: when it comes to improving self-talk, treat it like something else that you are trying to improve. Create a plan for it and then move forward, and then do self-assessments and watch and see, don't your self-talk improve?
I like everybody else, I greatly appreciate this conversation. I believe in listening to it, everybody got something out of it. I want to kind of get after the heart of the matter, the how to part of the improving self talk. And I will start off by saying, don't just sit there, do something. And I think that's important. So, what do you do? Well, first and foremost, I got to go back to the old saying, and I think Warren Buffett said this a long time: the best investment that you'll ever make is in yourself. So, invest in yourself. Like it has to be intentional. It needs to be intentional. It's also a two-part process that goes along with that. So, first and foremost, invest in yourself. Garbage in equates to garbage out. So you have to be consciously aware of what you're putting in yourself. So going should be the days of those particular TV shows to where we start addressing each other with these adjectives, adverbs, and superlatives, and taking them as our own nouns and things of that nature. We have to do away with that stuff, because that stuff is putting in you a pool, a resource of information that's going to start coming out of you. And unfortunately, that stuff, when it comes out of you, it's not going to be anything positive that it creates for you. Like we said before, words mean things, and believe it or not, it has the ability to start the creative process. Change your environment. Like some of the people that we hang out with, we may claim that this is what I want in my life, but when I look at my social circle, the people that I surround myself with don't say that that's what I want in my life. So it's not that they're bad people; they are where they are for their own self development, right? And that takes me to that point: self development. Self development needs to be a way of life. If we're not doing something actively and continuously to be better, then we should not be surprised when we come to the point of being stagnant. And I think those things, if you just do those things to be value added. Now, I just want to say this before we go back to Brother Gaddy, because again, I greatly appreciate everybody who participated in today's goal. We came up a little short, that's okay. But nonetheless, I appreciate everybody who participated. And again, we want to make sure that you are recognized. We want to make sure that you know that you're valued, and you are an awesome part of this community. Not just you guys, but everybody else. But we appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
Mine is going to be a typical me type of type of statement. When we get to our negative self-talk, I think some of it stems around, do we see ourselves able to reach success and whatever that looks like to us. But my question, because most of us that are in this community are believers, my question is, what does success look like to you? Does it look like the world, or does it look like the Most High? And if I'm a believer in the Most High, it should look like Him, right? Romans 8, one of my favorite chapters. Really, pretty much all of Romans is my favorite chapter. Um, but if I go to verse 8 and 20, I mean verse 27, he says, "And he that searcheth the heart knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God." Right, the Spirit does, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose, for whom he did foreknow, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. Right? And Revelation let you know what that firstborn is. Right? Moreover, uh, whom He did predestine, them He also called, and whom He called, them He also justified, and whom He justified, He also glorified. What shall we say then to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? He who spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, how shall we not with Him also freely give us all things? Right? The problem is the things sometimes in which we're searching for, the thing that we're believing for, the thing that we're trying to achieve is contrary to who He has called us to be. And so I agree with everything that the panelists said tonight. I agree. I love every final thought that was given. I will add to it is that we have to make sure that the thing in which we do is just like what Paul, he says this one thing that I do. Now we've seen Paul do a lot of things, but in everything that he did, it was one thing that he did. Forgetting those things which are behind, person for those things which are for. Right? I failed back then, it's back there. I leave it there. Now I have to move forward in faith. But I can only move forward in faith if where I'm going is where the Father is. And I think that is sometimes the problem. And when we are walking that path, then these scriptures can apply to us. We know that that a lot of what he's saying here is what we call eschatology, is end times, but knowing that in him all things work together for good to us if we love him and we are called according to his purpose. And so I'll land right there. Um, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm just glad that my brothers was here to make me look good tonight. All praises to the Most High. Right, I had to slide that self talk thing in there. But all praises to the Most High. So we appreciate everyone in the chat. Y'all were on fire. Listen, uh, you said we don't have anything on this Saturday, right? But join us for our Sunday brunch. It'll be 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, 10:30 Central Time, right? On TikTok. I think this week will be on the Voice of Reason, our sister Lisa Keys page. So if you don't already follow her on TikTok, her name is the Voice of Reason. Go ahead and follow her. Um, and search the chat, right? Sister Crystal Everett have been keeping us on point with everything that is going on in the community, all of our up and coming programs, right? Uh, we don't want no one to be amiss. But if you are new here, go ahead and not only like the video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and do us a favor. If you want to hear more from our panel, from our great coaches, in fact, if you need some coaching of yourself, go ahead and over to our community on the totalmindsetshift.com and see all the many products that we have available. not products, but services that Coach has available. Um, and the community we have an open chat panel there, just like on social media. Right, join the family, join the love, and we'll see you Sunday. And after that, we'll see you Tuesday for Coach's Corner. Other than that, I love you. Y'all be blessed. Have a great rest of your weekend, and be available for those who you love. Please.